It's been a while, hasn't it? When I heard that voice, chills ran down my spine and goosebumps covered my body. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but that was the unmistakable voice of my former best friend. The one who betrayed me and had an affair with my then fiance. Since that day, I had completely erased her from my memory, not having any contact with her at all. But in this moment, the unpleasant past flashed back, and I found myself frozen in place for a few seconds. What are you doing here? Shopping in such shabby clothes, is that your husband by any chance? Who might you be? Should I say I'm your wife's best friend? Well, we haven't been in touch for years, but we go back to kindergarten. It took me a moment to find my voice, but I was irked that she introduced herself as my best friend to my husband. Could you go ahead and pay first? I'll just have a word here and then join you. Sure, got it. After sending him off, I took a deep breath to calm my emotions and then spoke. What exactly are you doing here? I'm living a happy life with my husband now, so could you please not talk to me? Did meeting me, the winner after such a long time, make you feel miserable? Imagining how, if I hadn't cheated with him, you could have been living in a penthouse, buying luxury brands, and driving a high-end car through downtown. Did that scenario cross your mind? I'm not interested in such a lifestyle, and I couldn't care less about what you do or where you are. Just, don't talk to me anymore. And stay away from my husband, too. I also live in the neighborhood and frequently use this supermarket. That's why I didn't want her to get any closer to us, considering the possibility of running into her again. Are you afraid I'll steal your husband again? I trust my husband, and I don't think he would follow a little slut like you. With that, I left her behind. Then, my former best friend chased after me, running. Apologize for looking down on me, you lowlife. I live in the high-rise across the street, among the upper class. She yelled that out loud. Just as I decided there was no point in engaging further and was about to leave the supermarket with my husband. Are you Sabina, right? If you claim to be an upper-class citizen living in a high-rise, then please make sure to pay your rent. It doesn't seem right for you to say anything to us when you're behind on your payments, does it? Huh? You've been 2 months behind on your rent, but I suppose it's strange seeing an upper-class citizen only buying discounted items at the supermarket. You must be saving up to pay off the rent, so I guess it can't be helped. My name is Hannah, and I'm currently living as a freelance designer. I met my husband 3 years ago, and we got married last year, now living just the two of us. Since we both have a strong desire to focus on our careers, we haven't had kids but are living a happy life. Been busy lately? Actually, a chef friend of mine just opened a restaurant, and I was thinking of dropping by when we have time. He trained in Italy and said the pizza is excellent. Really? We haven't eaten out in a while, so let's go. I can make time next Sunday. Got it. I'll make a reservation then. Since we don't have kids, we're relatively free to do as we please. We can go wherever we want, whenever we want. I think that's the secret to maintaining a good marriage. People might look at us now and see a happy couple, but that's because I've made mistakes in the past. About 5 years ago, I had a fiance. We had only been dating for about a year when he proposed, and we decided to get married. Even though it was just a year, we felt we knew each other well enough to commit to a life together. But the turning point came one day, a month after we got engaged. We were already living together, and I came home from work to find him waiting. I'm home. Huh? No way. Weren't you supposed to be late today? This timing. When I got home, I found him and my best friend naked and entwined. I was truly shocked and couldn't find the words to speak. My best friend and I had known each other since I was 4, and she was thrilled about my engagement. And yet, she had cheated with my fiancé. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and stood there dumbfounded for a moment. Trying to suppress my racing heart, it took all my effort to speak. And my voice came out trembling. Excuse me. What are you doing? Well, you can see for yourself, can't you? Just as it appears. Do you both realize what you're doing? We're engaged. But he decided to sleep with me instead of you, your fiance. Haven't you realized you're not attractive enough? At first, Sabina seemed surprised by my reaction, but then she started making belittling comments. If it had been a moment of madness that she regretted, maybe I could have forgiven her. If she had apologized profusely, maybe, just maybe, I could have accepted it, coming from my best friend. However, there was no sign of remorse from either of them, and they didn't seem to intend to apologize at all. No. What are you saying? So, it sounds like you're blaming me, but isn't this the result of your own lack of appeal? Don't blame me for that. Many people get this wrong, but it's not the cheater who's at fault, it's the one who got cheated on. What are you talking about? Sleeping with someone's fiancé is the lowest of the low. We've been friends since we were kids. Why would you do this? I just took my chance with a good man nearby. As a biological creature, I don't think it's wrong at all. I shouted in anger, and at the same time, big tears started to fall. It wasn't just the anger from being cheated on in secret, it was also the deep sadness from being betrayed by my best friend and him. With my emotions in turmoil, I felt like I had lost control of myself. To think I trusted you and you betrayed me. Weren't we best friends? Betrayal? Don't make strange accusations. It's your fault for not continuing to polish your charm as a woman. Plus, she's just more physically compatible with me. She looks better, and most importantly, she knows how to make me happy in bed. You're just not the same. Are you serious? Don't you realize we're engaged? Well, it's not like we're married yet, so I don't think we need to feel that responsible, right? We haven't even met each other's parents, so it doesn't matter. It's just a verbal promise of marriage. Might as well not have happened. Without admitting to what they had done or apologizing, both of them had the audacity to blame me for everything. I was at a loss for words and just froze on the spot. Besides, I heard his family owns a company and they're pretty wealthy. Thinking you could marry someone like that, you're way out of your league. Shouldn't you be more aware of your own level as a woman? Are you implying I was after a ticket to the high life? That's ridiculous. I only found out about his family's wealth recently. Or was it all planned after finding out everything? Let's just forget the engagement ever happened. I have more fun with her anyway. This revealed the true nature of my ex-fiancé and my best friend, and perhaps it was a good thing I found out before we made it official. However, it left me deeply mistrustful of people for a while. Being betrayed to this extent by the people I trusted most, I couldn't bring myself to trust anyone anymore. That's when I met my current husband. Working as a freelance designer, I was introduced to him through a job connection with an architect. My husband owned an architectural firm and had always behaved with such dignity from the start. Hannah, the one taking care of our website's design, right? It's a pleasure to work with you. The pleasure is all mine. Despite my mistrust of people affecting my work to some extent, I strangely found myself able to trust him. As we had several meetings, we became closer and he eventually asked me out for a meal. I'm flattered by the invitation, but can we take a rain check? Of course. I wouldn't want to pressure you into anything. I'm sorry for turning down your invitation. The truth is, I was engaged once, and my fiancé cheated on me with my best friend. Really? Since then, I've had a hard time trusting people, making it difficult for me to start a new relationship. But I am slowly getting better, so maybe you could ask me out again sometime? Understood. We have all the time in the world, and I'll wait until you're ready. My husband looked me in the eyes and said those words, gradually helping me overcome my mistrust. 6 months later, we started going out for meals together, and another 6 months after that, we began dating. It didn't take long before we decided to get married. As we start our life as husband and wife, I promise to make you happy. I'm looking forward to it. By the time we decided to get married, I fully trusted my husband, believing that this time, I would have a happy marriage. My husband is sincere and always puts me first, making me believe That he would never betray me like my ex-fiance did. One day, my husband was out on site, and we had planned to have a Mexican party at home for the first time in a while after he finished work. Since we were running low on supplies, my husband and I decided to head to the supermarket after his work. Normally, we're both busy with work, so going out together was a rare occasion, which made this trip to the supermarket feel a bit refreshing. We picked out the ingredients for takoyaki, added some beer for a drink later, and were just about to head to the checkout. Then a woman's voice came from behind. "It's been a while, hasn't it?" That voice sent shivers down my spine and goosebumps all over my body. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but it was the unmistakable voice of my former best friend. She betrayed me and had an affair with my then fiance. Since that day, I had cut off all contact with her, erasing her existence from my mind. But in that moment, the unpleasant past came flashing back, and I found myself frozen in place for a few seconds. "What are you doing here? Shopping in such a shabby outfit, is that your husband by any chance?" Who might you be? Should I say I'm your wife's best friend?" "Well, we haven't been in touch for years, but we go back to kindergarten." I couldn't find my voice for a while, but I was irked that she introduced herself as my best friend to my husband. "I'm not your friend." I wanted to say that strongly. However, nervous about this unexpected reunion and with the past flashing back, I decided to take a deep breath before speaking. "Could you go ahead and pay first? I'll just have a word here and then join you." "Sure, got it." My husband knew about the affair with my ex-fiance, but I didn't want him to stay in the same space with her any longer. So, I asked him to go to the checkout, leaving me to talk with her. Of course, we were in a public place, and I'm not a child. I took another deep breath to calm my emotions before speaking. "What exactly are you doing here? And you, what are you doing in such an upscale neighborhood?" "I just walked here from my high-rise where I live." "Did you travel all the way from some apartment complex, spending about an hour to specifically come to a supermarket in an upscale area?" "I live around here now." "That's impressive. But we're no longer friends, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't mess up my life anymore. I'm happily living with my husband now, so please don't talk to me." "Did meeting me, the winner after so long, make you feel miserable? If I hadn't had the affair with him, you'd be living in a high-rise, buying luxury brands, and driving a luxury car downtown by now. Did that scenario cross your mind?" She said that to me with a smirk. I have never once envied her life. If someone steals another person's fiancé and marries them, there can't be any real love there. Besides, from what I've heard, she's not enjoying married life with him but rather the lifestyle that comes with his money. Buying designers' items, driving luxury cars. That seems to be her status and the greatest joy in her life. I'm not interested in that kind of life, and I couldn't care less about what you do or where you are. Just, don't talk to me anymore. And stay away from my husband. I also live in the neighborhood and frequently use this supermarket. That's why I didn't want her getting any closer to us, considering the possibility of running into her again. Afraid I'll take your husband? That's not it. I trust my husband, and I can't imagine him going after someone like you. Her condescending remarks had been non-stop, showing no sign of remorse for her past affair. This made me angry. I might have been a bit aggressive in my response, but she reacted strongly to my words, frowning and confronting me. What? What did you just say to me? I just stated a fact. Don't you dare belittle me. You're just jealous because you married a blue-collar worker and are living a miserable life. That doesn't give you the right to speak to someone of higher standing the wrong way. Don't get too cocky. She probably said she was of higher standing because she lives a wealthier lifestyle. To me, judging oneself by the amount of money they have is a narrow and immature way of thinking. But getting her angrier wouldn't help. Having cooled down a bit, I decided to end the conversation and go back to my husband. Anyway, just leave us alone. That's all I have to say to you. With that, I left her and hurried back to my husband, apologizing for the delay. He had just finished checking out, and we started to bag our items. Since there weren't many items, packing was quicker than expected, and just as we were about to leave the supermarket. "Ah, there you are. You haven't apologized for earlier." "Excuse me?" As we were leaving, she spoke to us again. I had just told her to leave us alone. And yet, why did it have to end up like this? A heavy sigh escaped me. "What exactly do you want?" "We're not free to deal with this." "Not free? Is it because your construction worker husband's salary doesn't allow for a decent living, so you're busy with a side job?" No matter what I said, she responded with disdain. I couldn't understand her purpose, but I wanted no further involvement with her. I didn't want to cause any trouble for my tired husband either. "So, what are you trying to say? How dare you, a lowlife, demand an apology from me? I live in the high-rise across the street, I'm an upper-class citizen," she said loudly. Before demanding an apology from me, she should be apologizing for her own actions. Yet, she spoke as if she was entirely in the right, which made me angry, but I knew arguing here would be pointless. Just as we were about to leave the supermarket quickly to avoid her since she hadn't finished packing yet. "You're Sabina, right? If you claim to be an upper-class citizen living in a high-rise, then please pay your rent on time. It doesn't make sense for you to lecture us when you're behind on your rent." "Excuse me? You've been 2 months behind on your rent. It's a bit odd seeing an upper-class citizen only buying discounted items at the supermarket, but I suppose you're saving up to pay your rent, so it can't be helped." "What are you talking about?" I was surprised by my husband's comment. As I was confused, my husband smiled and started to explain. I thought I recognized her face. Then, when she mentioned living in the high-rise across the street, it clicked. She's the lady who's been renting a room from me for the past 6 months. "Don't make strange accusations. The idea that you own a high-rise and are a landlord is ridiculous." She lashed out at us loudly, not caring about the people around. Being countered by someone she looked down upon must have been unacceptable to her. However, my husband wasn't lying. I hadn't been very informed about my husband's work, but he does own several apartments in a high-rise, and the rental income is a fact. And it's also true he's been worried about a recent tenant who's been delinquent on rent. I am the owner, actually. My company handles everything, but I do know your husband. "Don't lie. How could someone like you, just a construction worker, own a high-rise? That's obviously a lie." You shouldn't judge people by their appearance. Despite how I look, I earn rental income, and I also run a construction company. I sometimes go to the site, and today was just one of those days. "Excuse me?" Even after becoming successful and having money, I go to the site occasionally to not forget where I started and to avoid becoming arrogant. It's that arrogance that leads people to look down on others, calling themselves upper class and others lower class in such a vulgar manner. My husband hit her with sound reasoning, and she was left speechless. Even that was quite satisfying, but for my husband, the person who was delinquent on their rent was right in front of him. He couldn't just leave it be. "If you still don't believe me, shall I tell you the room number?" "Wait, so you're really the one renting out the room?" "That's what I've been saying all along." Please don't make me repeat myself. "Look. I'll make sure my husband pays the rent, so can you just leave?" As soon as she realized her position had worsened, she told us to leave. There was no apology for the rent she owed, truly ending as a person. She didn't seem to realize the inconvenience she caused others. Probably, she felt ashamed after boasting about living in a high-rise all this time. But that's none of our concern. How about apologizing at least? Not paying rent is pretty questionable as a person. Well, I think taking someone's fiance already showed that. "Shut up. It's none of your business. Don't think you can use your husband's wealth to talk down to me." I wanted to retort, and not just I, but my husband was also dumbfounded. The people around us who had been listening to our conversation began to look at her with cold eyes. But she didn't seem to notice. "Move. You're in the way. She hastily packed her belongings into her bag, pushing past us to leave the supermarket. We also saw no reason to stay any longer, so we headed home together. I had never imagined that my husband's tenants would be the two people who had betrayed me, so our walk home was filled with talk about them. Who would have thought it was those two I've heard about? I knew they were dishonest, but it seems one's character really does show on their face. Their dishonesty isn't new. We really had bad luck. Given their personalities, they likely trashed the room too. Well, they'll definitely have to pay the repair costs when they leave. I have personal grievances against you for betraying me, but beyond that, as your landlord, I need you to take responsibility. While having this conversation, we returned home and decided to forget about those two and start our party. I had a great time enjoying myself with my husband after a long while. Then, about a month later. Hello. Your husband is telling me to leave. Can you ask him to give me a bit more time? Excuse me? I received a call from an unknown number, wondering who it could be. Turns out, it was my former best friend. I had deleted the contacts of both my former best friend and ex-fiance after the affair, so I didn't expect her to contact me. She probably changed her number to reach out. Do you understand why you're being asked to leave? It's because you haven't paid your rent, right? But your husband runs a company, so he shouldn't be short on money. I'll pay as soon as I have the money. Can't you wait a bit longer? Look. Don't you understand the basic rules of being an adult? Excuse me? First of all, you're delinquent on your rent and haven't apologized. You haven't even mentioned when you can pay. Why do you think we'll wait forever without saying anything? You received a reminder last month, didn't you? That's your job to figure out. I'll come up with the money and pay off all the back rent at once. He's your husband, so you could at least talk to him, right? I still don't understand why I should help someone who betrayed me. It's natural not to understand the thoughts of someone who can cheat with someone else's fiancé without remorse. Besides, I'm not involved in my husband's real estate business, so it's not my place to interfere with his decisions. If you can't afford the rent, then that place is too good for you. You better realize that. That's none of your business. Anyway, there's nothing I can do to help. Even if there was, I wouldn't. You're probably looking forward to a life even lower than us common folks, but try to enjoy it, okay? I said just that and hung up the phone. I blocked the number she had called from. Then, my ex-fiancé also called from his smartphone, but I hung up the moment I heard his voice. After that, we never heard from the two of them again, but my husband told me what happened afterward. I waited 3 months, but since they didn't make any sincere effort to resolve the situation, it was only fair. Besides, the cost for their eviction is going to be pretty hefty. Really? Did they really do that much damage? They drilled holes in the walls, smoked inside, just did whatever they wanted. Of course, all the prohibited actions were listed in the contract, and they'll have to pay for all the repairs. Though, considering they couldn't even pay the rent, I doubt they have the money for it. Unsurprisingly, those two had trashed the place, and the repair costs were enormous. There was quite a dispute over the repairs and back rent, but after involving lawyers, those two ended up having to borrow money to pay it off. We've completely cut ties with them since and have regained our happy life as a couple. Do those two even realize the trouble they've caused to the end? What kind of people are they, really? People who cheat don't think about the inconvenience they cause others. Yeah, you're right. They looked down on us as lower class, but they were the ones with rat-like characters. Coming from my husband, who rarely uses such harsh words, I could easily imagine how miserable those two must have made themselves look in front of him. And from what I've heard, they eventually divorced. Of course, she had only taken my ex-fiancé from me because his family was wealthy. But about half a year ago, his parents' company went bankrupt, and his family ended up penniless. They couldn't afford the rent for the high-rise apartment they had just started renting, and all this came to light because of her excuses to him. She decided to divorce him once she realized he had no money. But from a man's perspective, I don't think anyone would fall for such a woman. Especially someone with a bit of money and a high social status, who likely already has a family and is thinking about remarriage. Seems like an impossible story to me. Of course, it seems like an impossible scenario. Firstly, her age is against her, and then there's her personality. I doubt anyone would even consider her. And since she's never really worked up until now, finding a job must be tough, right? As someone who runs his own company, I can say for sure, someone like her would be immediately turned down if she came for an interview. How she's going to live from here on out, I'm not sure, but one thing's for sure, she's going to have a tough time. Just as my husband and I discussed, my former best friend, after her divorce, couldn't find another partner nor secure a job, and had to move back to her parents' house. Once home, she was lectured daily by her parents and reluctantly started working part-time. However, due to her unnecessarily high pride, she couldn't last long in any job and was constantly reprimanded. It seems she has devolved into someone who, even into her 40s, continues to be supported by her parents. She'll be in trouble when her parents can no longer support her, but it's doubtful anyone will lend her a helping hand. My ex-fiance seems to be living a meager life while helping pay off his parents' debts. Hearing this, one might feel sorry for him, being burdened with his parents' debts, but in reality, he had lived lavishly for years on his parents' and my former best friend's dime. Now, it's come back to haunt him. As for me, I'm still working as a freelance designer, enjoying life every day. With a decent income from my design work, I'm financially independent from my husband. What's crucial in a marital life is not each other's income. It's about how much we trust and support each other. If one views the partner merely for their benefits, such a marital relationship won't last long. If you're not ready to follow your partner through hell, then the marriage won't stand. Life can't be lived alone. I hope that my husband and I can continue to live together and support each other.